When Earth sent its worst representatives, the message arrived on a Tuesday morning, transmitted through quantum channels that Earth's scientists barely understood. The Galactic Council had spoken, and their words carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. The primitive species of the third planet in the Sol system will send representatives to the Grand Assembly. These representatives must be your finest specimens of civilization, your most educated and refined beings. They will come to learn their place in the cosmic order. Dr. Margaret Thompson, Earth's Secretary of Interstellar Affairs, stared at the message with growing dread. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, studying alien cultures, learning diplomatic protocols, and training elite ambassadors. But something about the message's tone bothered her deeply. "They want our most civilized representatives," she muttered to her assistant, Dr. James Parker. But what if civilization isn't what they think it is? The Council had made their expectations clear. Earth would send 5 representatives to demonstrate humanity's worthiness to join the galactic community. These representatives would be judged on their ability to show proper respect, fear, and submission to superior civilizations. Dr. Thompson made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of sending career diplomats, she chose 5 people who represented the true heart of humanity. Her choices raised eyebrows throughout the government, but she stood firm. Sam Chen had spent 40 years fixing cars in Detroit. At 62, he could diagnose any mechanical problem just by listening to an engine. His hands were permanently stained with grease, and he spoke in simple, direct sentences. When asked why he volunteered for the mission, he simply said, "Somebody needs to check if their ships are running properly." Maria Santos taught kindergarten in Los Angeles. She had the patience of a saint and the ability to explain complex concepts to 5-year-olds. Her classroom was filled with pictures drawn by her students, and she always carried spare snacks in her pockets. "Children are curious about everything," she said. "Maybe aliens need that kind of curiosity too." Big Tony Ritchie, ran a food truck in Brooklyn. He could make anyone smile with his jokes and feed them the best sandwich of their lives. His philosophy was simple. Good food brings people together. Doesn't matter if you're from Earth or Mars. He insisted on bringing his portable grill to space. Grace Williams had spent 25 years as a firefighter in Chicago. She was calm under pressure, brave in the face of danger, and had saved countless lives. Her grey hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her steady hands had never shaken, even in the worst emergencies. "Crisis is just another word for opportunity," she said. Eddie Murphy Jr. was a comedy writer from San Francisco. He had the gift of finding humor in any situation and could make people laugh even during their darkest moments. His notebooks were filled with observations about human nature, and he believed that laughter was the best way to connect with others. The Galactic Council's representatives were not impressed when they saw Earth's delegation. The 5 humans stepped off their transport ship wearing simple, practical clothes. Sam wore his best work shirt and jeans. Maria carried a bag full of teaching supplies. Tony had somehow smuggled his grill onto the ship. Grace looked around with the calm assessment of someone who had seen everything. Eddie was already taking notes. The Grand Assembly was held on Zentara Prime, a massive space station that served as the Council's headquarters. The main chamber was designed to intimidate visitors. It was enormous, with walls that seemed to stretch into infinity. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows. At the center of the chamber sat representatives from over 300 alien species, arranged in tiers that rose like a mountain. Supreme Chancellor Vexthera of the Zephyrian Empire sat on the highest tier. The Zephyrians had ruled through fear for over 2,000 years. They were tall, elegant beings with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Their eyes were large and completely black, and they wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Vexthera was the most feared being in the galaxy, and his voice could make entire planets surrender. Council Speaker Morden called the assembly to order. The speaker was a massive creature that looked like a cross between a tree and a crystal formation. His voice boomed through the chamber like rolling thunder. The representatives of Earth will now present themselves for judgment, Morden announced. Let them demonstrate their understanding of their place in the cosmic hierarchy. The human delegation walked to the center of the chamber. Sam looked around at the assembled aliens with the same expression he used when examining a complicated engine. Maria smiled and waved at some of the smaller aliens in the lower tiers. Tony was already planning how to cook for 300 different species. Grace stood ready for whatever came next. Eddie was frantically writing down everything. He saw Supreme Chancellor Vexthera rose from his throne. When he spoke, his voice was designed to strike terror into the hearts of all who heard it. Primitive beings of Earth, he intoned, you stand before the might of the Galactic Council. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have brought order to chaos and civilization to the savage. You will bow before our superiority and accept your place as our servants. The chamber fell silent. This was the moment when new species traditionally fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the display of power and authority. Instead, Sam Chen scratched his head and said, "That's a real nice speech, but I got to ask, how's the maintenance on all these ships? Because, from what I saw coming in, you got some serious efficiency problems." The silence in the chamber deepened. Vexthera's shimmering skin changed color, shifting from silver to a deep purple that indicated confusion. Maintenance, the Supreme Chancellor asked. "Yeah, your engines are running rough," Sam continued, "and the energy output is way lower than it should be. When's the last time you had somebody take a look at your power systems?" Maria Santos stepped forward with a gentle smile. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but how do you teach your children about all this conquering? Do they ever ask why you need to make other people afraid?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no one had ever asked about Zephyrian child-rearing practices. Tony Richie was looking around the chamber with professional interest. "This is a pretty impressive setup you got here," he said. "But I bet you guys get hungry during these long meetings. You ever think about setting up a food court? I could whip up something that would make everybody happy." Grace Williams was studying the architecture of the chamber. "The structure is solid," she said approvingly, "but the evacuation routes are terrible. If there was an emergency, you'd have a real problem getting everyone out safely. You want me to walk you through some basic emergency procedures?" Eddie Murphy Jr. was grinning as he scribbled in his notebook. "This is great material," he said. "Do you guys ever do stand-up comedy? Because the whole bow before our superiority thing would kill at an open mic night." The assembled aliens stared at the humans in complete bewilderment. In the entire history of the Galactic Council, no new species had ever responded to the intimidation display with practical suggestions and friendly conversation. Vexthera's skin was now cycling through colors rapidly, indicating severe confusion. "You are not afraid," he said. "Should we be?" Sam asked. "I mean, you seem like nice enough folks. A little dramatic, maybe, but nothing wrong with that. We are the most powerful empire in the galaxy, Vexatora insisted. That's nice, Maria said kindly. But power doesn't mean you can't be friends with people. Some of my best students were the strongest kids in class. We have weapons that can destroy entire star systems. The Supreme Chancellor tried again. That's a lot of responsibility, Grace said seriously. How do you make sure nobody gets hurt by accident? Do you have safety protocols? The other aliens in the chamber were beginning to murmur among themselves. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to be terrified, not offering to help with maintenance and emergency planning. Council Speaker. Morden leaned forward, his crystalline form catching the light. Perhaps the humans do not understand the situation, he boomed. We are offering you the chance to join our civilization. You should be grateful for this opportunity. Oh, we are grateful, Eddie said. This is fascinating. But I have to ask, do you always recruit new members by scaring them first? Because that seems like it would create trust issues down the line. Trust issues? Morden asked. Yeah, like, if you start a relationship by threatening people, they're always going to be waiting for the other shoe to drop, Eddie explained. It's basic psychology. You want lasting partnerships, you've got to build on mutual respect. Tony nodded, enthusiastically. That's why I always give free samples, he said. You want people to like you, you got to show them you care about their experience. Food is about bringing people together, not pushing them apart. Sam was still focused on the practical issues. Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but your whole operation here could use some work. The energy consumption alone must be costing you a fortune. And don't get me started on the resource allocation problems. Maria raised her hand politely. Excuse me, but I'm curious about something. You said you've conquered 1,000 worlds. Do those worlds get to participate in the council, or do they just have to do what you say? The question struck at the heart of the galactic power structure. The truth was that most member species were essentially subjects, following orders from the dominant empires without having any real voice in decision. They follow the guidance of their superiors, Vexatora said carefully. That doesn't sound very fair, Maria replied. In my classroom, everyone gets a turn to speak. Even the quiet kids have good ideas sometimes. Grace was still thinking about the practical implications. So if there's ever a real crisis, like a natural disaster or an invasion from outside the galaxy, how do you coordinate response efforts? Because if most of your members are just following orders without understanding the big picture, you're going to have communication problems. The aliens were beginning to look at each other with dawning realization. The humans were asking questions that no one had ever asked before, and the questions were exposing fundamental flaws in the galactic system. Eddie looked up from his notes. Can I ask something? Are you guys happy with this setup? I mean, really happy. Because from an outside perspective, it looks like a lot of work just to keep everyone scared. The chamber fell silent again. For the first time in galactic history, someone had asked if the system actually worked for the people in it. Sam Chen looked around at the assembled aliens and shrugged. Look, I don't know much about running a galaxy, but I know about fixing things that are broken. And from where I'm standing, this whole setup could use some serious repairs. As the human delegation continued their innocent questions and practical observations, something unprecedented began to happen in the Grand Assembly. The aliens began to realize that fear was not the only way to organize a civilization, and for the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council faced a challenge they had never encountered before: the possibility that there might be a better way to live together in the universe. The revolution would begin with a simple question about engine maintenance and a kindergarten teacher's smile. Asterisk. How humans accidentally defeated an empire with questions. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after the human delegation's first appearance. In the private chambers of the Supreme Chancellor, the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to discuss what they were calling the human problem. Supreme Chancellor Vexthera paced back and forth, his shimmering skin cycling through colors that indicated deep distress. Around him, the other council leaders sat in various states of confusion and concern. They showed no fear, Vexthera said for the 10th time. No fear at all. They asked about maintenance schedules and emergency procedures. They offered to cook food for the entire assembly. War Commander Griselda of the Thorak Empire, a massive reptilian being with scales like black diamond, shook her enormous head. In my 600 years of conquest, I have never seen such a response. They treated our display of power like a job interview. The human called Sam suggested we were wasting energy. Added Financial Overseer Keldon of the Merchant Confederation. He said our power systems were inefficient. He was ... correct. The admission sent ripples of shock through the chamber. The Galactic Council's supremacy was built on the assumption that their technology was superior to everyone else's. The idea that a primitive mechanic could spot flaws in their systems was deeply troubling. We must demonstrate our true power, Vexthera declared. Prepare the grand display. Show them the full might of the Zephyrian Empire. They will learn to fear us. Meanwhile, back in their assigned quarters, the human delegation was having their own meeting. Their accommodations were luxurious by galactic standards. Rooms with adjustable gravity, walls that could display any environment, and synthesizers that could create any known substance. The humans found it all very impressive, but slightly impractical. Sam was examining the room's environmental controls with professional interest. These systems are overcomplicated, he said. Look at all these redundant circuits. You could do the same job with half the components. Maria was unpacking her teaching supplies. Did you notice how none of the aliens seemed to enjoy themselves? Even when they were showing off their power, they looked stressed. That's not healthy. Tony had somehow managed to modify the room's synthesizer to create ingredients for sandwiches. I've been thinking about the cultural exchange possibilities, he said, while assembling what looked like the galaxy's first Italian sub. Food is universal. Everyone needs to eat. Grace was reviewing the station's emergency protocols on her tablet. Their safety procedures are a disaster waiting to happen, she said. They've got power, but they don't have preparedness. One system. Failure could kill thousands. Eddie was writing furiously in his notebook. This is the best material I've ever found, he said. An entire galactic civilization built on the principle that everyone should be afraid all the time. It's like a comedy goldmine. The next morning, the human delegation was escorted to the Grand Display Chamber, a facility designed to showcase the military might of the Galactic Council. The chamber was enormous, with holographic displays showing the conquest of hundreds of worlds. At the center of the room stood a perfect replica of the Zephyrian Empire's ultimate weapon, a ship the size of a small moon that could destroy entire star systems. Supreme Chancellor Vexthera stood before the display, his robes flowing with liquid starlight. Behold, he announced, the true power of the Zephyrian Empire. This vessel, the Starbreaker, has ended the resistance of 47 worlds. Its weapons can shatter planets, and its shields can withstand the fury of dying stars. The human delegation looked at the display with interest. Sam walked around the holographic ship, examining it from different angles. "That's a big ship," he said appreciatively. "But I got to ask, how do you fuel something like that? The energy requirements must be massive." "We harvest the power of conquered suns," Vexthera replied proudly. "That seems wasteful," Sam said. "You're basically strip mining solar systems to power one ship. Have you considered fusion alternatives? More sustainable? And you wouldn't have to keep conquering people for fuel." Maria was studying the conquest displays with the same expression she used when reviewing her students' behavioral problems. "These worlds you conquered," she said gently, "did you ever ask them if they wanted to be conquered? Sometimes people resist because they're afraid, not because they're bad." "They resisted because they were inferior," Vexera said. "Or maybe they just needed someone to listen to them," Maria suggested. "In my experience, most conflicts come from misunderstandings." "Have you tried talking to them before using the big ship?" Tony was examining the tactical displays. "I got to say, your logistics are impressive," he said. "But feeding armies across multiple star systems must be a nightmare. You ever consider setting up local food production? Keep the troops happy, support local economies, everybody wins." Grace was focused on the practical implications. "This Starbreaker thing, what's your crew complement? Because a ship that size needs thousands of people to operate, and if something goes wrong, you've got a major evacuation problem. Do you have enough escape pods?" Eddie was taking notes and grinning. "This is great, but I have to ask, do you ever get tired of being the bad guys? Because that's essentially what you are, right? You show up, threaten people, and take their stuff. That's classic villain behavior." The assembled council members stared at the humans in growing confusion. No species had ever responded to the grand display with practical questions about fuel efficiency and crew safety. "We are not villains," Vexthera said defensively. "We are the bringers of order to a chaotic universe." "But you bring order by threatening people," Eddie pointed out. "That's not really order. That's just everyone being too scared to move. True order comes from cooperation, not fear." Sam was still examining the ship display. "You know what this reminds me of my neighbor's car. Big, flashy, expensive to maintain, and he only drove it to show off. Meanwhile, his wife had a practical sedan that actually got her where she needed to go." "Are you comparing the Starbreaker to a car?" Vexthera asked. "I'm comparing it to a bad decision," Sam replied. "You've got all this power, but you're using it inefficiently. It's like using a sledgehammer to hang a picture." Maria stepped forward with her teacher's voice. "May I ask something? Are you happy? I mean, really happy? Because from what I can see, you've spent thousands of years making everyone afraid of you. That must be exhausting." The question hit the chamber like a physical blow. In the entire history of the Galactic Council, no one had ever asked if the rulers were happy with their lives. Vexthera's skin cycled through colors rapidly. "Happiness is ... irrelevant. We have power, we have control. But power without happiness is just a prison you build for yourself," Maria said gently. "I've seen children who thought they needed to be mean to get what they wanted. They were never really happy until they learned to make friends instead." Tony had been thinking about the galactic food situation. "You know what you guys need? A really good meal. When's the last time you just sat down and enjoyed eating something? Because I bet you can't remember." Grace was reviewing the station's structural data on her tablet. "Speaking of basic needs, When's the last time anyone did a comprehensive safety inspection on this place? Because I'm seeing some serious red flags in your emergency systems. Eddie looked up from his notes. Can I make a suggestion? Instead of spending all this energy on intimidation, why don't you try a different approach? I mean, you've got the resources to solve real problems. You could be the guys who help people instead of scaring them. The council members began murmuring among themselves. The humans' questions were exposing fundamental flaws in their entire worldview. War Commander, Griselda leaned forward. You speak of helping people, but without fear. How do you maintain order? How do you prevent chaos? You build trust, Grace said simply. In my work as a firefighter, I learned that people don't follow you because they're afraid of you. They follow you because they trust you to keep them safe. And you earn trust by showing up when people need you, Tony added. Not by threatening them, but by helping them. Food, shelter, protection from real dangers. That's what people actually need, Sam nodded. It's like maintenance. You can force a machine to work by pushing it too hard, but it'll break down eventually. But if you take care of it, maintain it properly, it'll run forever. Maria smiled at the assembled aliens. You have the power to make the galaxy a better place. Why not use it that way? The question hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council faced a choice they had never considered. They could continue ruling through fear, or they could try something completely different. Eddie closed his notebook and looked around the chamber. You know what's funny? You guys spent all this time trying to scare us, but you never asked what we could offer. Earth might be primitive by your standards, but we've got something you don't seem to have much of. What is that? Vexthara asked. Hope, Eddie said simply. We believe things can get better. We believe people can change. We believe that cooperation is stronger than fear. Sam stood up and brushed dust off his work shirt. Look, I'm just a mechanic. But I know that when something's broken, you can either patch it up temporarily or fix it properly. Your whole galactic civilization is running on patches. Maybe it's time for a complete overhaul. The revolution that would reshape the galaxy began with those words. Within hours, species that had been silent for centuries began speaking up in council sessions. The Thuric Empire found themselves facing questions about their military spending. The Merchant Confederation had to explain why their trade agreements were so one-sided. The Zephorian Empire discovered that their reputation for invincibility was based more on myth than reality, but the most profound change came from the humans themselves. They didn't conquer the galaxy through superior firepower or advanced technology. They conquered it through something much more powerful. The simple act of treating everyone they met as equals, worthy of respect and friendship. Sam Chen became the galaxy's first human chief of engineering, redesigning council systems for efficiency and safety. Maria Santos established the first galactic education initiative, teaching alien children that curiosity was more valuable than fear. Tony Ritchie opened the first interspecies restaurant, proving that good food really could bring anyone together. Grace Williams created the galaxy's first comprehensive emergency response system, ensuring that help would always be available when needed. Eddie Murphy Jr. became the galaxy's first interspecies comedian, helping different cultures understand each other through laughter. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was no longer a tool for domination. It became what it should have been from the beginning, a place where different species could work together to solve problems and build a better future for everyone. And it all started because Earth sent 5 ordinary humans who refused to be afraid and insisted on asking questions. Sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe is simply the courage to be kind. The galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.